The rapper has died after being stabbed in Soledad prison. Authorities say 22-year-old Jaime Valdez.
On April 25th, 2023, a California prison was rocked by a violent attack resulting in the tragic death of Jaime Brugada Valdez, also known as Money Sign Suede. The rapper celebrated for his distinctive swagger.
Valdez is also known as Money Sign Suede.
The incident involved fatal clashes among gang members within the prison walls. The story of Brugada is merely scratching the surface as we explore more criminals who died in prison. What compelled these individuals to choose a path that eventually led them to a tragic end in prison?
Anything good, bad, or indifferent?
Join us as we explore 10 gang members instantly killed in prison. James Whitey Bulger. James Joseph Whitey Bulger, the infamous Boston crime boss, met his end just one day after being moved to a federal prison in West Virginia. Bulger, born in 1929 in Boston, Massachusetts, grew up in South Boston, where he became entangled in criminal activities from a young age. Starting with car theft and escalating to bank robberies, he eventually built a criminal empire that included loan sharking, gambling, extortion, drug dealing, and murder. Bulger's notoriety was amplified by his complex relationship with the FBI, particularly with rogue agent John Connolly Jr., who turned a blind eye to Bulger's crimes in exchange for information on other gangsters. This arrangement allowed Bulger to evade authorities for years until his arrest in 2011 in Santa Monica, California, after 16 years on the run with his girlfriend, Catherine Gregg. In 2013, Bulger was convicted of federal crimes including racketeering, extortion, and his involvement in 11 murders spanning the 1970s and 1980s. His violent acts led the United States government to pay over $20 million in damages to his victims, as some of these crimes were committed while he was supposedly under government supervision. Despite his ruthless reputation, Bulger surprisingly expressed remorse in a 2015 letter to students, acknowledging his wasted and foolishly spent life. His final chapter came swiftly in October 2018, when shortly after his transfer to Hazleton Penitentiary, he was found beaten to death in his cell by another inmate wielding a makeshift weapon. Gerald Scarpelli. Gerald Scarpelli, a Chicago native and son of a baker, embarked on a life of crime at a young age. Despite his aspirations for legitimate business ownership, his criminal record hindered his dreams. Scarpelli had a total of 18 arrests and pleaded guilty to armed robbery in 1965, receiving a suspended sentence and probation. He served as a crew member for the Carpo regime, gaining notoriety as a leading loan shark and overseeing illegal gambling in Chicago suburbs. Scarpelli's criminal activities escalated, culminating in his participation in the 1979 murder of George Christofalos, orchestrated by mobster John Bellini. Surprisingly, Bellini was found dead 2 months later, making Scarpelli the prime suspect. Scarpelli's criminal activities continued, including a raid on an adult bookstore, resulting in the shooting of Michael Oliver and the 1980 murder of William and Charlotte Dober. In 1988, Scarpelli was arrested again, this time for a robbery in Michigan City, Indiana. Faced with wiretap evidence discussing assassination tactics, Scarpelli chose to cooperate as an informant. He eventually confessed to the Dober murders and other killings, including those of mob chauffeur Gerald Kello and chop shop owner Timothy Bryan. On May 2, 1989, just 2 days before a court ruling on his robbery charges, Scarpelli died by suicide in a Chicago correctional center. His demise was likely due to a recent court ruling against him regarding the wiretap conversations, which he may not have had the courage to face. Scarpelli's life was marked by a dramatic twist, from a failed boutique owner to a reputed loan shark and eventually an informant, his criminal activities ultimately leading to his downfall. Michael Torres. In the depths of California's sprawling state prison system, where narratives of power and betrayal intertwine with the harsh realities of incarceration, the life and death of Michael Torres unfold as a chilling saga of crime, authority, and ultimate downfall. Michael Torres, widely known by his alias Mosa, carved a formidable reputation within the labyrinthine corridors of the Los Angeles County jail system. His journey from the turbulent streets of San Fernando to becoming a figure of influence within the Mexican mafia was marked by violence, cunning, and a wise ability to navigate the complex dynamics of gang politics. Torres first joined the Sanford gang, but in 1994 he rose through the ranks of the Mexican Mafia with the support of Luis "Wab Buff" Flores. His criminal career began with a manslaughter conviction, leading to a lengthy 16-year incarceration. Despite his time in prison, Torres didn't let it quash his ambitions. Instead, it became a transformative experience where he honed his skills. Emerging from incarceration, he assumed a new role as the tax collector for the Mexican Mafia in the San Fernando Valley. Under his stewardship, Torres wielded significant authority, overseeing illicit transactions and imposing a hefty tax on drug sales. His prowess extended beyond mere enforcement. He skillfully managed finances, leveraging contraband cell phones to monitor operations and distribute profits among mafia affiliates. This acumen earned him the moniker Mosa, symbolizing his meticulous oversight and organizational control. However, Torres's reign was marred by unrelenting violence and legal entanglements. In 2003, tensions escalated when Torres confronted David Diablo Mendoza, resulting in a fatal shooting. His uncompromising stance on mafia affiliations led to further infamy, as associates allegedly carried out acts of violence under his directives, perpetuating a cycle of retribution and fear. Despite his criminal sophistication, Torres found himself ensnared in the crosshairs of law enforcement. A federal indictment in 2019 linked him to conspiracies with the Aryan Brotherhood, escalating his legal troubles and cementing his notoriety in the annals of organized crime. Yet even amid legal battles and incarceration, Torres's influence persisted, extending his reach into legitimate ventures while maintaining a firm grip on underworld operations. On July 6, 2023, the saga of Michael Torres reached its brutal denouement within the confines of prison walls. Investigative reports detailed the stabbing death of Torres at the hands of fellow inmates, Juan Martinez and Ray Martinez. The precise reasons behind the brutal act remained unclear, yet speculation centered on deep-seated animosities likely intensified by Torres's controversial character and forceful methods. Jaime Brugada Valdez. In the stillness of the State Correctional Training Facility in Soledad, tragedy unfolded with the violent end of Jaime Valdez, known by his stage name, Money Sign Suede. For many, it was a bewildering turn of events that led the once promising Mexican-American rap sensation down a path from which there was no return. Born to immigrant parents from Mexico, Jaime Valdez grew up in the streets of Huntington Park, Los Angeles. From a young age, he was drawn to music, discovering his voice and rhythm in the raw, pulsating beats of rap. At just 16, he began recording and uploading tracks that would eventually catch the attention of Atlantic Records, sealing his fate as a teenage sensation on the rise. His breakout hit, Back to the Bag, catapulted him into the spotlight of the rap scene in 2020, amassing tens of millions of streams and solidifying his place among the industry's elite. The following year proved equally fruitful with the release of his self-titled EP and his debut album, Parkside Baby. Despite achieving rapid success in the music industry, Valdez's life was deeply affected by a darker reality, commonly experienced by those from tough neighborhoods. Like many in similar circumstances, he was familiar with the criminal underworld. His involvement in these circles resulted in convictions for firearms possession, which led to a severe sentence of 32 years. On the evening of April 25, 2023, the routine institutional count at the correctional facility in Soledad took a grim turn. Correctional officers, following protocol, discovered Valdez missing from his cell during the nightly head count. Their search led them to find the 22-year-old rapper unresponsive in another area of the housing unit, his body bearing injuries that suggested a violent altercation had taken place. Efforts to revive him proved futile as emergency responders rushed to the scene, only to pronounce Valdez dead shortly thereafter. The shocking nature of his murder left prison officials and investigators scrambling for answers. Yet initial reports from Valdez's attorney indicated that he had been fatally stabbed. As investigations commenced, speculation swirled about the circumstances surrounding Valdez's untimely demise. Some suggested that internal conflicts or unsettled scores within the inmate population might have played a role. Others questioned whether his notoriety in the music world had inadvertently drawn unwanted attention and envy from fellow inmates. Larry Davis. Larry Davis, celebrated for his influence on both the streets and in the music industry, faced a dramatic upheaval in 1986. Born on May 28, 1966, Davis garnered nicknames like the Crack City Terminator and was revered by some as the 50 before 50 for his street credibility. However, his entanglement in drug trafficking marked a turning point, culminating in a significant event on November 9, 1986, in the South Bronx. In a confrontation with NYPD officers, a shootout ensued, resulting in the tragic deaths of 6 policemen. Davis's subsequent capture on December 6, 1986, ignited a firestorm of controversy and intrigue. He boldly asserted his innocence, claiming the police had provided him with the firearms and that he acted in self-defense during the shootout. Moreover, Davis stunned many by alleging his involvement in drug dealings had ties to corrupt practices within the NYPD, implicating officers from the Bronx precinct. In a remarkable twist, a Bronx jury acquitted Davis of all charges related to the shooting, an unprecedented verdict in American legal history regarding civilian police conflicts. Despite this vindication, Davis still faced legal repercussions, notably for illegal possession of firearms. The fallout from Davis's case stirred deep-seated animosities within the NYPD and the political arena. Former Mayor Edward Koch publicly expressed disdain for Davis, asserting that the criminal justice system failed to deliver the justice he believed was warranted. Davis's subsequent conviction in April 1991 for a 1986 Bronx murder added to the complexities of his legal saga. While serving his sentence at the Shawangunk Correctional Facility in Ulster County, New York, Davis met a brutal end on February 20, 2008. His murder within the prison walls, widely speculated to be retribution for his past actions, sparked mixed reactions. Some viewed Davis as a symbol of resistance against police corruption and brutality, elevating him to a status of heroism within certain circles. However, the details of Davis's life and death are clouded by controversy and conflicting accounts. To some, he represented a tragic figure whose promise and abilities were eclipsed by the turmoil and legal challenges that marked his life. Others viewed him as a symbol of resistance against systemic injustices, continuously challenging the established norms until the very end. Michael Garrett. On October 16, 2000, Michael Garrett's life took a fateful turn when he was convicted of serious crimes including racketeering, murder, human trafficking, and drug trafficking. His trial gripped the public not just for the severity of the charges, but for the unprecedented use of rap videos posted on YouTube as damning evidence against him and his associates in the Together Forever Mafia. Garrett, known for his dual roles as a gang co-leader and a hip-hop director, faced the grim prospect of spending his remaining years behind bars. The possibility of life imprisonment without parole loomed large, casting a shadow over his future. However, fate dealt a tragic twist on February 28, 2016, when Garrett met his untimely end at the Metropolitan Detention Center. While awaiting sentencing, he tragically overdosed on synthetic marijuana. The news shocked many, as there had been a prevailing belief that overdosing on cannabis was impossible. Garrett's death, ruled accidental by the city's medical examiner, was attributed to underlying cardiovascular disease exacerbated by the overdose. The circumstances surrounding Garrett's death raised profound questions about the security and operations of the federal facility where he was held. Despite being touted as one of the most secure prison systems in the United States, how was it possible for Garrett to smuggle in synthetic marijuana? This glaring security breach prompted scrutiny and disbelief among legal experts and prison officials alike. Even Garrett's former lawyer, James Lisa, expressed dismay at the revelations. He questioned how such contraband could find its way into a federal facility, contrasting it sharply with the stringent security measures typically associated with such institutions. Prison experts weighed in, acknowledging the challenges inmates face in smuggling drugs into high-security facilities, but were equally puzzled by the oversight in Garrett's case. Garrett's death had a profound impact on the criminal justice system, revealing the hidden flaws and vulnerabilities that exist even in the most secure and esteemed law enforcement institutions. Subscribers pick. In the gritty underbelly of organized crime, where power is currency and loyalty is tested through bloodshed, The story of Vinny Rossi unfolded like a modern-day tragedy etched in the annals of criminal history. Born into a working-class neighborhood in New York City, Vinny's early life was a turbulent blend of poverty and ambition, where survival often meant walking the thin line between right and wrong. From a young age, Vinny was drawn into the allure of the streets, finding refuge in the camaraderie of local gangs. His charisma and street smarts quickly earned him respect, paving the way for his ascent into the ranks of a formidable crime syndicate. Under the tutelage of older mobsters, Vinny honed his skills in racketeering and extortion, proving himself a valuable asset in the cutthroat world of illicit enterprises. By his early 30s, Vinny had carved out a niche for himself as a trusted lieutenant within the syndicate, known for his strategic mind and ruthless efficiency. His rise, however, came at a cost. Loyalties were fragile, alliances precarious, and betrayals deadly. Vinny navigated these perilous waters with a mix of streetwise bravado and calculated cunning, earning both admiration and fear from those who crossed his path. Yet as his influence grew, so did the shadows that trailed him. The law tightened its grip, and whispers of informants lurked in the corners of smoke-filled rooms. Despite his caution, Vinny's luck ran thin. In a dramatic turn of events, he was arrested during a sweeping federal crackdown on organized crime. The charges were staggering: racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, and a litany of other offenses that painted a portrait of a man deeply entrenched in the criminal underworld. Convicted after a highly publicized trial, Vinny Rossi was sentenced to life in a high-security federal prison. Behind bars, the once-feared crime boss found himself in a world governed by its own brutal rules. His days were a monotonous cycle of confined spaces, hardened stares, and whispered threats. The prison walls, once a symbol of his empire's reach, now confined him to a life of confinement and regret. As years passed, news from inside the prison walls became more ominous. Reports surfaced of tensions boiling over among rival factions within the facility. One fateful day, a sudden burst of violence erupted, claiming the lives of 10 gang members. Among them were some of Vinny's old friends. This deadly fight sent shockwaves through the criminal world. For Vinny Rossi, the news was a grim reminder of the fragility of life in the world he once commanded. Surrounded by concrete and steel, he reflected on the choices that led him to this stark reality. Did he regret the path he chose, or did he harbor defiance in the face of his downfall? As he stared at the blank walls that confined him, one question lingered: what drives men to seek power at such a high cost? Reflecting on Vinny Rossi's journey from crime boss to inmate, what do you think ultimately led to his downfall, and what lessons can be drawn from his story? Drop your comments below and join the conversation on the allure and consequences of life within the criminal underworld. Covo da Silva. In the realm of Brazil's criminal underworld, a name echoed through the streets of Rio de Janeiro: Covo da Silva, the mastermind behind the notorious Red Command terrorist group. His reign of terror began in 1976 as he rose to power, controlling vast swaths of the city's drug trade with an iron fist. The nickname Shorty struck fear into those who knew him, highlighting his dominant influence over the criminal organization in the drug market. But Silva's empire came crashing down in 2013 when he was arrested and sentenced to 73 years in prison for drug trafficking. Initially incarcerated at Bangu 3 prison, Silva's reputation as a cunning and ruthless leader preceded him. On August 3, 2019, he made a daring attempt to escape, donning a disguise that would have made even the most seasoned actor proud. With a silicone mask, long wig, glasses, bra, and teenage girl's clothing, Silva aimed to switch places with his visiting daughter. His plan was to walk out of the prison system unnoticed, leaving behind the shackles of his criminal past. However, his nervous behavior betrayed him, and the guards spotted him, forcing him to shed his disguise. The attempted escape sparked a media frenzy, with images and videos of Silva in his disguise circulating across social media platforms. It was a stark reminder of his previous attempt to escape through a sewer system in 2013. Following his foiled escape, Silva was transferred to Bangu 1 prison and placed in solitary confinement, a fate that would ultimately prove too much for him to bear. On August 6, 2019, Just 3 days after his elaborate escape plan was foiled, Silva was found dead in his prison cell, a victim of self-harm. The once feared leader of the Red Command had finally met his match, unable to cope with the confines of his prison cell. Francis Patrick Salem. Francis Patrick Salem, born on August 18, 1933, and sometimes known by aliases like Cadillac Frank and Julian Daniel Selig, hailed from the streets of Boston, Massachusetts. His journey in the criminal underworld began as a hired gun, honing his skills until he ascended to the pinnacle of power as the head of the patriarch crime family of New England. However, his story took a dramatic turn when he later chose to cooperate with the government as a witness against his former associates. Born on August 18, 1933, in the heart of Boston, Massachusetts, Salem's path to notoriety seemed almost predestined. From an early age, he was drawn to the allure of the streets, where respect was earned through grit and cunning. Salem's rise through the ranks of the Patriarch crime family, one of New England's most notorious mafia organizations, was propelled by his relentless ambition and ruthless persona. By the 1960s and 70s, he had ascended to become the boss, wielding influence over a web of criminal activities that included loan sharking, racketeering, and extortion. His tenure at the helm was marked by a calculated blend of charisma and intimidation, traits that solidified his authority within the underworld. However, Salem's trajectory would pivot dramatically in the late 1990s when he made a fateful decision to cooperate with the FBI as an informant. This groundbreaking action profoundly disrupted organized crime, revealing the mafia's inner workings and resulting in the convictions of many top figures, including notorious individuals such as James Whitey Bulger. Salem's betrayal made him enemies within the criminal community, compelling him to enter the federal witness protection program for his own safety. Yet even under the cloak of protection, Salem's past continued to haunt him. In 2016, he found himself facing charges related to a decades-old murder, accused of involvement in the disposal of nightclub owner Stephen DeSaro's body back in 1993. Despite maintaining his innocence in the direct act, Salem's betrayal made him enemies within the criminal community, compelling him to enter the federal witness protection program, was convicted in 2018, marking a stunning fall from grace for the once untouchable mob boss. His attempts to appeal the conviction were futile, culminating in a life sentence that he began serving in a federal prison in Missouri. On December 13, 2022, at the age of 89, Francis Salem passed away at the United States Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Springfield, Missouri. Peter Arthur Gotti. Peter Arthur Gotti, a name synonymous with the dark legacy of the Gambino crime family, passed away on February 25, 2021, within the confines of a federal prison. Born on February 9, 1939, in the gritty neighborhoods of Brooklyn, New York, Peter's early life unfolded under the looming influence of his younger brother, John Gotti, who would eventually rise to infamy as the notorious boss of the Gambino family. John Gotti's ascent in the 1980s cast a long shadow that Peter would eventually step out from, albeit reluctantly at first. As his brother's right-hand man, Peter quietly maneuvered through the intricate webs of organized crime, learning the ropes and earning the trust of those within the family. With John's incarceration in 1992 on charges ranging from racketeering to murder, Peter's role transformed from a shadowy figure to a prominent capo within the Gambino hierarchy. The transition was not without its challenges. Peter faced the daunting task of maintaining order and profitability within the family's operations, while grappling with increased scrutiny from law enforcement. His tenure as the acting boss was marked by a period of heightened federal interest, culminating in a significant indictment in 2003. Federal authorities accused Peter of overseeing various illegal enterprises, including loan sharking, extortion, and money laundering, during his brother's imprisonment. In 2004, the legal hammer fell decisively. Peter Gotti was convicted on multiple counts related to his leadership of the Gambino crime family and sentenced to a lengthy prison term. His time behind bars was fraught with health issues and legal battles, including an unsuccessful appeal for early release based on deteriorating health in 2011. During his time in prison, Peter kept a low profile, which was markedly different from the flashy personality of his brother John. On February 25, 2021, Peter Gotti's life came to a close within the walls of the Federal Correctional Complex in Butner, North Carolina. He succumbed to natural causes at the age of 81, marking a rare instance of a high-ranking mobster passing away peacefully while in custody. His death signified the end of an era for the Gotti family, whose criminal exploits had long captivated the public imagination. Peter Arthur Gotti's story is one of intertwined fate and familial loyalty within the underworld. From his humble beginnings in Brooklyn to his rise and fall within the Gambino crime empire, Peter navigated a treacherous path where power, betrayal, and inevitable consequences shaped his legacy. His passing closed a chapter in the annals of organized crime, leaving behind a legacy fraught with both admiration and infamy, emblematic of an era where the line between respect and ruthlessness blurred in the pursuit of power. Richard Leonardo Klinsky. Richard Leonard Klinsky, known infamously as the Iceman, was a figure whose life story straddled the chilling realms of organized crime and the complex dynamics of personal relationships. Born in April 1935 in Jersey City, New Jersey, Klinsky's early years were marred by a tumultuous upbringing characterized by abuse and violence at the hands of his parents. These formative experiences would later cast a long shadow over his life, influencing the path he would ultimately choose. In the 1950s, Klinsky found his entry point into the world of organized crime, initially engaging in petty theft and extortion. His reputation for violence and efficiency quickly earned him recognition within criminal circles across the New York metropolitan area. He became associated with the DeCavalcante crime family and later aligned himself with the notorious Gambino crime family, where he gained notoriety as a prolific hitman. Klinsky's moniker, the Iceman, stemmed from his chilling modus operandi of freezing some of his victims to obscure the time of death, a method that reflected both his calculated approach and his desire to evade detection. His criminal portfolio expanded beyond mere enforcement and extortion to include contract killings, drug trafficking, and other illicit activities. His intelligence and creativity in devising methods to eliminate targets, such as using cyanide poisoning or firearms, underscored his reputation as a ruthless and effective operative within the underworld. Despite his brutal profession, Klinsky managed to maintain a facade of normalcy in his personal life. In 1961, he married Barbara Pedrici, with whom he had 3 children. Klinsky took extensive measures to shield his family from the realities of his criminal enterprises, portraying himself as a typical suburban family man while concealing his true activities behind closed doors. However, Klinsky's criminal career came crashing down in 1986 when law enforcement finally caught up with him. Initially apprehended for involvement in a pornography distribution ring, Klinsky was soon charged with a litany of more serious offenses, including multiple counts of murder, conspiracy, and racketeering. During his trial in 1988, Klinsky stunned the courtroom by admitting to a staggering tally of between 100 to 200 murders committed over several decades, although the exact number remains a matter of conjecture. Convicted on 5 counts of murder, Klinsky was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Despite efforts to present himself as a changed man and express remorse for his actions, his legacy as a cold-blooded killer persisted. Even after nearly 18 years behind bars, Klinsky's health began to deteriorate. In October 2005, he was diagnosed with Kawasaki disease, a rare condition affecting the heart's arteries. Despite medical attention, his condition worsened, and he faced the possibility of cardiac arrest. Interestingly, Klinsky's former wife, Barbara, had previously signed a do not resuscitate order and chose not to change it, even when asked a week before his death. On March 5, 2006, at the age of 70, Klinsky succumbed to cardiac arrest while serving his sentence at the New Jersey State Prison in Trenton. The circumstances surrounding his death stirred controversy, with some speculating that his life might have been prolonged had Barbara chosen differently. Richard Leonard Klinsky's life and death encapsulate the complexities of the criminal underworld, where brutality and secrecy coexist with the semblance of ordinary family life. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.